On today's show, we catch up with a surfer girl who's trying to change the tides. Trust me when I tell you this can only be seen on LatiNation. Welcome to LatiNation, celebrating your generation from coast to coast. I'm your host, Humberto Guida, and on today's episode, I catch up with an old friend of mine, Becky Mendoza. She's Cuban from Miami, just like me. I actually knew her way back in high school. She came out to California, and she followed through with an action sports law career. She represents and has worked with some of the biggest names in action sports, but she also discovered surfing. Now, when she started surfing, she realized there wasn't a lot of female surfers out there to surf with, and she wanted to form a group of surfer chicks, surfer girls, surfer women, however you want to say it. But they took it a step further. When they started doing their surf trips around Latin America to places like Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and others, they realized that they could do better. They could actually help some of these places out. So they started taking water filtration systems. They also started doing environmental cleanups here in Southern California and Encinitas and other places. And they started forming a group, and they call themselves the Changing Tides Foundation. It's basically these surfer girls who are out to change the world and to clean up the environment and to help some of the places that they visit do better. And so I got to catch up with her. Check this out, it's Becky Mendoza right here on LatiNation.
My name is Becky Mendoza, and I'm the Executive Director and co-founder of Changing Tides Foundation. And our mission is to empower women to protect the planet. Changing Tides Foundation was founded by 5 female surfers who wanted to do more than just take waves when we went on trips. So it started as a travel-based organization when we would visit Latin American countries. And we started doing clean water projects, bringing water filters with us, and trying to encourage other travelers like ourselves to serve when they traveled. And it evolved into more of a mentorship program for women, all really involved around surfing the ocean and ways to protect our playground. I actually grew up always like a tomboy, around all boys. And I moved here from Miami, Florida, and when I moved over here, I started surfing, and I, found it difficult to find other women that surfed. And so in my time living out here, I'm an action sports attorney, so I actually work in the surf industry. And in doing so, I started meeting other women that surf and other women that were, passionate about taking care of the environment as well. And so we kind of would come together, surf. It felt a lot more powerful to me to be able to connect with women in the ocean. It wasn't something that I was used to. I always was just one of the boys, right? So I basically called my girlfriends and said, hey, I have this idea, but it won't work unless every single one of us is on board. And all the girls at the time lived on Oahu, and I was here in Encinitas, so it was all on FaceTime, and it was like an emotional call. Everybody felt really touched by it, and everybody just felt like this is what's next. And so that's when Changing Tides Foundation was formed. Coming together with these women, we were really like-minded, really pushing each other and encouraging each other and empowering each other. And I actually started going on surf trips and bringing water filters with me. It actually started with a surf trip to Nicaragua. I got injured about 2 months before my trip was about to happen. And I decided that instead of canceling my trip, I had a pulled hamstring. I decided instead of canceling my trip that I wanted to go anyways, because there's more to traveling than just surfing, right? And so I decided to start fundraising to bring water filters with me on my trip so that I can distribute water filters. When I came back, kind of had people asking me like, hey, how can I do this? How can I join you on a trip? And so, and some of these people were my close girlfriends that I was talking about that I surf with. And one day I was doing laundry, and as I was folding a sock or picking up a sock, I had this vision in my head. And the vision was, what if we all came together, all of us meaning my group of girlfriends that surfed, and we created an organization that gave back to the places that we visit and basically created a way for people like us, like adventure travelers, to be able to contribute to different organizations. So What's interesting is, I mean, this is like a few years before Changing Tides Foundation started. And for me, the water issue was something I was learning more and more about how many people die each year from really contaminated water and waterborne illnesses. And Nicaragua is a unique place because there's a lot of fresh water running under the ground there because they have volcanoes and they have lakes. And the problem is people are still getting sick and dying, and it's because the water is not clean. And so bringing a tiny water filter with me that cost, $30 to distribute to these communities just seemed like a really easy way for me to be able to make somebody's life a little bit easier. I wasn't coming in as like a savior, I'm gonna fix all your problems. It was just, what can I do to help make your life a little bit easier? And the more and more I spoke to people that had gone to Nicaragua and that were Nicaraguan, the more and more I was hearing that water was a major problem. And for me, being Hispanic, my family's Cuban, I was born in Miami and I'm fluent in Spanish, it became very easy for me to communicate with taxi drivers and with kind of like people that I was coming across, food vendors and people in these communities, and really be able to connect with them and understand what is it that you need. And I had already taken a trip to Nicaragua once before and caught amazing waves, so I was just really excited to be able to do something more to contribute. What we're trying to do is change the tide, not just towards a more environmentally friendly future, but also a future that has more women as stakeholders and decision makers and more girls empowered to be part of the solutions that exist in the world today. It just really felt like the perfect calling for us because what we're trying to do is change the tide, not just towards a more environmentally friendly future, but also a future that has more women as stakeholders and decision makers and more girls empowered to be part of the solutions that exist in the world today. When we started collaborating with local NGOs in the places we were visiting, because that's kind of how our strategy, that was our strategy from day one. It was to say, we're not going to come in and save you. We're going to team up with organizations that are established in these communities, and we're going to work with them to alleviate problems that are specific to the communities. And what we were seeing more and more was this disparity, and I think it was because we're surfers, there was this disparity where when kids hit teenage years, the girls didn't necessarily want to participate with the boys. Maybe the boys didn't want to participate with the girls. And I think it was more of a, a hormonal teenage thing where it's like you don't want to look silly in front of your peers. And so for us, it was a unique opportunity to say, okay, well, all of a sudden these programs, which were funded, by Americans, right? And implemented over in let's say, Panama or Dominican Republic or all these different places we've gone, it just would end up being all boys. And so this created a unique opportunity for us to be able to come in as women and say, how can we help? And it went beyond just, hey, let's teach you how to surf. It became about talking about our bodies. It became about talking about the kind of issues we face collectively as women, and also an opportunity to encourage teenage girls, instead of competing against each other, to support and encourage and empower one another. And surfing is a great way to do that because everybody's very humbled. From the moment you get in the ocean, you're getting tossed around, and nobody's good at it right away. And it's just a really good way for for girls to support each other. I went to law school in Miami, and I did my master's in sports administration as well. And so my plan was always to combine the two, right? To always combine law and sports. And I was a really big mainstream sports athlete and fan. At the time, I went to University of Florida for undergrad, huge Gator fan. I love the Dolphins, the Heat. And basically, while I was in law school, a friend of mine in law school took me up the coast for like a Memorial Day weekend. And he said, I'm going to teach you how to surf. I think you'd really like it. And so I went and I loved it. And I was terrible. I got sun poison. I was like peeling for months, on the back of my legs. I couldn't even sit on the surfboard. but I was instantly hooked at just the feeling of not only being in the ocean. For me also, I'm very competitive, and so I was driven, to compete with myself, to accomplish something and to reach my goal. And I worked for a big action sports agency that worked with a lot, I think almost all of their athletes had their own show on MTV. It was like that kind of jam. It was like Travis Pastrana and Ryan Sheckler and kind of all these really big, action sports athletes. So I got to learn a lot then. That kept me hooked. I went back to Miami, finished law school, stayed there for a couple years, and basically my whole goal was, how do I find my way back to Encinitas? How do I find my way back to California? And yeah, I think that's kind of where that drive comes from for me. And I think of the feedback I've gotten from my friends about being the mama bear, I think that's also part of the Cuban culture and where I grew up. It's certainly how my mom is, and how my family raised me to be, around a lot of community, around a lot of people, and just giving what I can to those who need it. It's world, and that kind of encouraged me more and more to push myself. I love, I say one of the biggest pieces of the best pieces of advice I could give somebody is to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you if you want to get better at something, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean somebody that has more degrees than you. I think for me, if I want to be a better surfer, I have to hang around with better surfers. If I want to be a better snowboarder, I have to go to the mountains and hang out with better snowboarders. And I've been so blessed to literally be around the best of the best, and that's pushed me to be my best self as far as my personal achievements with action sports and my personal participation in the sports. But I think also, as far as the mentorship for the people around me, I think that people see, they can see that I'm genuine. They can see that, I don't have ulterior motives. I'm transparent. What you see is what you get. And also the fact that I'm, the risk taking, the fact that I'm not afraid to take risks. I think that for a lot of people, that could be empowering. I hate to use the word inspiring because I don't choose who I inspire, right? So I can't say I hope to inspire people, but I do want to give you the tools, right, to empower you to maybe do a little bit better. Once you know a little bit better about something, to do a little bit better, and maybe that's going to help you feel, more whole.